This is definitely one of those episodes that's going to need an explicit warning. We're talking about one of my hot button topics, one of the things that I am so passionate and opinionated on when it comes to your ex. We're going to look at how you decide if he's a narcissist or just an asshole. Let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today we're diving deep into a topic that I absolutely love. I am so passionate about this topic, but full transparency, I've remained relatively quiet because I tend to fall on the other side of this topic. It's narcissism. It's dealing with narcissists. And when I have chatted with other individuals when it comes to narcissists, and I share my opinion of what I think we need to do, you can just see them kind of look at me and be like, "Are you crazy? Are you crazy? That is not a solution." It is a solution in my book. It is what worked in my book. And I have watched it work numerous times, relationship after relationship, because, drum roll please, narcissism is not a thing that is a label. You are either all narcissistic or you are not. Yes, there are true narcissists out there. But guess what, you guys? We all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have times when we put our own needs first. We all have times when we do things that we know are not nice or not kind to your ex. We do these things. We all have been there. And we have all been there when we have been pushed to our limits. And when we're pushed to our limits, there's no more wiggle room. There's no more collaboration. There's no more let's work together. That's when we all pull the narcissist card. So when we all start showing up, calling our ex a narcissist because holy smokes, tell me that's not all over the internet. I swear to God, if I see another divorce account talking about why your ex is a narcissist, here's the deal. I think that there are very, very few people that are clinical narcissists. And I think, the opinionated part, I think that when we start to label all of our exes as a narcissist instead of having narcissistic tendencies, it actually almost belittles the people who really do have to work with a narcissist. So I think the question is he a narcissist or is he just an asshole? 90% are probably just assholes. And when you learn to understand what's pushing their buttons, what's triggering them, and more importantly, what you can do to create some space to allow that intensity to calm down, then they become less of an asshole and more willing to start to work together. Doesn't mean that you give them space and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my gosh, let's do collaborative co-parenting." You guys, it took time for the relationship to break down. It takes time for a new relationship, a new way forward to be built. Narcissist. Let's talk about the real narcissist. I know you're sitting in the place and you're going to say, "No, Erica, I swear my ex is a narcissist." And I'm going to say, okay, let's talk through some examples. Now, I have 2 or 3. I'm trying to think of how many times a true clinical narcissist has crossed my path. Now, here are some examples. This ex-husband chose to burn down the house of his ex-wife that he still owned and his 2 daughters still lived in because he wanted to make sure that she didn't get anything in the house after the divorce was final. That is a narcissist. I have another example of when somebody is using the children as pawns, controlling them to the point, like this one is refusing visitation, refusing access, going against the court ordered parenting time. And this person knows that it's affecting their children. Their children are asking to see their parent. They are making the phone calls, they're reaching out, they're doing whatever they can. The other parent doesn't care how badly it hurts the children, doesn't care the amount of legal bills that they're now sorting through because this parent is in violation of the court order, doesn't care. And there is no amount of reasoning that is changing this person's belief that they are correct. So, if you have done any research around narcissism, in fact, I absolutely love Victoria McCooey. I've had her on the show before. She specifically works with high conflict, severe narcissistic partners. So her entire client list has stories like the ones I've just shared, where it is going to the point of destruction, almost loss of life, of truly creating physical harm, mental abuse, all of the things. That is her Rolodex of experience. She had a fantastic show. We talked about some of the signs of a narcissist because there's the common ones, right? We think about the narcissist that really owns the room, that comes in and everybody loves them and they're so social and so charming and they buy the dinners for everybody and they're always, "Oh, let me help, let me do this." And then, you leave and everything changes. All of a sudden they become very manipulative and very cruel in their words, and maybe they are physically controlling or physically hurting you. Okay, we know about that type of narcissism, but there are other types or other characteristics that come up. We're not going to go through all of them today, but I am going to talk about the other type of narcissist, which is a covert narcissist. Now, this narcissist doesn't own the room. They're not super social, but they're very good at playing the victim to get everybody else to do the work for them. So they are the ones that are constantly needing help and, oh, they're so overwhelmed. And guess what? Everybody else shows up to do the work for them. Now, here's where the two have the same, because they're pretty opposite, right? One's very outgoing. One is very like, oh, woe is me. I need help. In both of those situations, at the core of their belief system, they believe the lies their mind is telling them. So that example where I said the one parent was withholding the kids, this parent did believe they were doing what was in the best interest of the children. This parent did believe that there was risk if these kids went to the other parent. The legal team, the medical team, everybody had told this parent they were wrong. Their fears were not valid, but this parent could not believe that truth. So the hard part about working with a narcissist is they have created such a system of smoke and mirrors in their mind as to why they are always right, why they are never at fault, that they, in all honesty, can't find their way out of it, because at the very, very core, their most deepest inner wound is a fear that they are not worthy. And so they have built a system around proving how truly worthy they are by hurting other people, which makes them seem not worthy. But the only reason they can't get help is because they don't believe it or see it themselves. Now, that really is a narcissist. A narcissist is somebody who is doing things that the rest of the world can see. This is not sane. This is not a safe choice. And yet, in their mind, that is a viable option. This is where, when we say all of our ex-husbands are narcissists instead of assholes, we are taking away how truly detrimental and toxic it is if your ex really is a narcissist. Because the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the financial abuse is out of this world compared to just our run-of-the-mill narcissistic tendencied ex. So let's talk about that one. I remember when I was going through the divorce process, a lot of people were coming up, not a lot, because I didn't tell a lot of people, but you know what I mean. The majority of my friends were like, "Oh, your ex is such a narcissist." say it. And you know me, I'm all about love and abundance and grace. And I was like, no, I don't think that. I don't think that. And they're like, oh my gosh, he's being such an asshole. He's being so selfish. He isn't doing what's in the best interest. How can he make these choices? He's the one that cheated, right? All the things. Okay, so here's the deal. At that point, he, I'm speculating officially, but I believe he felt cornered. Okay. The truth was out. We knew that there was another woman. We knew that we were going to file for divorce. We were writing our own agreements, right? And everything was going really, really smooth till the agreements are done and in comes the third person. And what happens? Third person, new fiance, me, old wife, him, ex-husband. He is now in between. I'm not going to lie, a rock and a hard place. He's between me, who is trying to enforce our court agreed upon documents for the sake of our child, and a new fiance who wants life run her way. And what do you think happened? He'd tell me one thing, he'd do something else, he'd tell her something, he'd promise her something, he'd promise me something. Nothing was lining up. And when push comes to shove at the end of it, everything was pretty damn selfish. I'm trying to think of some examples. We had a lot of issues with being consistent in drop-off times. We had a lot of issues with communication. We had a lot of issues where he'd be like, well, my work schedule changed. You deal with it. And I'd be taking the extra time. Pretty much what he would do is he'd call and he'd say, my work schedule changed, so I can still take our son, but he'll be with a babysitter the whole time. So your call. And what do you think my mommy heart did? Oh, my poor baby. We're a brand new divorce. I can't send him to a babysitter. Of course, I rearranged my schedule. I took him. I bent over backwards to continue to try and make this work. The new fiance would send me absolutely horrific text messages. I would try and meet in the middle. I would try and do all these things. I had pretty bad boundaries. We kind of know that. That was a lesson I had to learn. But at the end of the day, outside people were like, oh, he's being such a narcissist because he's choosing what works for him and solely for him. Okay, he's being an asshole. And he was dealing with his own issues with the divorce, right? Whatever he was going through in his process was causing a lot of the conflict and the tension and the miscommunication, and to be honest, the ongoing fighting that was going on between us. So what do? Right? If they're a narcissist and that's what the label is, they're never going to change. If they're just an asshole, you can apply some different behaviors to help them get a little space, relieve some of the pressure around the emotions, and in that space, hopefully start to be able to be more communicative or collaborative with you. All right. First thing you got to do, if somebody is acting like an asshole, probably they feel stuck in a corner. Think about an animal. If you trap an animal in the corner of the garage, the room, the whatever it is, what does that animal do? It fights. It fights to get back to a place where it no longer feels threatened. Do men deal with their emotions? Not very often. Some do, but men and women process differently. No blame around that. Men tend to package it up, move on, do physical activity to release the tension, the stress, the whatever's going on. The woman likes to talk it over, likes to be in her feels, likes to cry and scream and rage and get it out. Okay. So now you have a divorce that put tension and emotions on both people. One wants to continue to talk it out with a therapist or argue with the ex or whatever it is. We got emotions, we got big feelings, we got demands. We know how we want it to happen. And over here, your other side is like, I just want to be done. And she keeps coming at me and she keeps adding more things. And now these things you're coming at him with might be trying to communicate the child schedule. I'm not saying you're attacking him. I'm saying the new stress that you are putting on him is leaving him very little room to figure out who the heck he wants to be. It doesn't mean he gets to cause physical harm, emotional harm, financial harm, right? I'm not talking about the extremes. I'm talking about the average couple where their marriage breaks down and you got two people who are hurt and you got two people who are letting their emotions drive their actions. And when your emotions are in control, we do things like send the nasty text, call and stir the pot, right? Post the thing on social media. This is when our actions are fueled by a very reactive drive. Same thing is happening on that side. So give it some space. One of the things that I realized is that when we moved into divorce life, I was still 100% trying to control how he needed to show up as a parent to our son. I was worried about my son. I knew what I was watching him go through. I knew what I felt was the best answer to get through it. And I wanted them to have a good relationship. And I knew that my son was coming home and telling me, I can't talk to dad. Like, dad, it's not a thing that they had. So I inserted myself. Okay, now my ex is feeling trapped in the corner. I'm telling him how he needs to show up or what he needs to say to our son or how we need to be working together or what our co-parenting should look like. What do you think happened? He became an asshole again. He didn't. My son was supposed to be dropped off at 7 p.m. on Sundays, 7 p.m. roll around. I got crickets. I got no kid. I got no text message. He'd stop responding. I'd be like, where are you? What time are you showing up? This is unacceptable. What are you doing? Right? He's trying to enforce control. So he stopped responding. The moment I stopped asking, guess who started to get dropped off on time? So I gave it some space to stop trying to be the one who had all the answers. And within that space, we could start to move forward. It was not perfect right out of the gate. It wasn't perfect for a lot of years. It's not perfect right now. But right now, it's calm and we have clear communication between each other. And if I'm taking a trip, I can ask him to watch our son. If he's taking a trip, he can ask me. It's very easy to flow back and forth. We're not collaborating. We're not co-parenting in that sort of manner, but it's a working, functional business relationship with our child in between. If you've been struggling to find the right support to help you figure out what your next step is, the club is your answer. Launching this summer, we'll be hosting a private divorce group for you to get the support, the inspiration, and the guidance you need to be able to find the answers for you to finally move forward. No matter if you are unhappily married, trying to figure out what those next steps are, or in those early phases of separation and divorce where it feels like a constant uphill battle and you just want to get your feet underneath you, the club is going to be your place. Every single month, I offer support calls, networking calls to meet other women, and a signature program to guide you from confusion to clarity. On top of that, my most favorite part is every quarter, I'm going to send you a healing gift. You get a kit full of tools, support items, things to help you on your healing journey. The club is going to open up this summer, so make sure to get on the wait list. The link is in the show notes so that you have early access. So here's the test. Here's the test to know, is he a narcissist or an asshole? Give it some space. So you have a topic that I'm sure has gone round and round and round. We have patterns all the time in our relationship, even when we move through divorce, even as you move into the new way that your relationship is going to function, right? Just because you're not husband and wife, you are now co-parents, you are now exes, you have a new relationship that needs to be established. So give it some space. Stop doing the same reaction you have always done to whatever that trigger is. He either doesn't take the kids, or he's late for pickup, or he's late on the childcare payment, right? Send the response, just sending you a reminder. The childcare payment was due. Hopefully yours is just auto deducted, because let's make as few communication points necessary as possible. But whatever it is, you send the message, you push. If he feels trapped in a corner, he's going to fight. So stop fighting to make him move through an action. Give it some space. Allow it some breathing room. Be clear in your ask. Set a clear boundary. Take care of yourself through healthy boundaries, and be a little flexible. If when you're a little flexible, like my example of the Sunday night drop-offs, You're a little flexible. I stopped being like, this violates our divorce decree and you are late and this is being recorded, right? I stopped all that. I sat back. His behavior changed and it fell into alignment. Give it some space. See if they're willing to start to work together. Well, here's the other lesson that's really, really hard. Work together doesn't mean follow exactly what you say. That was a hard lesson for me because I wanted to still be the person running the show. You know, one of the reasons our marriage fell apart is our polarity, our dynamics had gotten reversed. I had taken control. I think it so often happens. You got a house to manage, you got kids that you're managing. That kind of falls under the female side, the female energy of the relationship, whether that's a male or female physical form, but you know what I'm saying. And then you have the other side, these typical roles. Now, we see lots of versions of these roles, so don't come at me saying that I am like so old school. What I am saying is that in any dynamic, there is one that is more motherly, more nurturing. There is one that is more, I'm going to go hunt the deer and bring home the food. And we each get to switch back and forth between both of those dynamics all the time. You don't have to stay as one. But in that meant, like I was overseeing the childcare and the birthday schedules and the medical appointments, and I was overseeing the house or the groceries. My ex was cooking dinner. He was a great cook. I was a terrible cook. So I do miss that. I talk about that a lot. But I was still trying to control what was in the best interest of our son. I had to learn to let go. I had to learn to ask instead of demand. And when I started to ask, again, clear boundaries, clear facts. When I started to ask and he had some space to respond, now we could get somewhere. Now, those narcissistic tendencies, they weren't there. They weren't showing up all the time. He was having his space. He was figuring out who he wanted to be. And I wasn't dictating how we needed to move forward. That's all that needed to happen for him to calm the F down and start to be willing to work with me. He doesn't do exactly as I say all the time. In fact, just this last weekend, I was like, hey, baseball season, 20% off at Dick's this weekend. Can you please take our son when he's with you? Send me the bill, right? We'll split it 50-50. That's what we do. He didn't use the coupon. I'm so annoyed. So he's still not going to do everything. It still impacted me because I still had to pay for it, even though I didn't get the discount. Those little things. But am I going to go back and am I going to tell him, like, you were supposed to use this and you need to go back and fix this and you? No. I'm going to say that sucks. I'm going to figure out a different solution. And thank goodness the kid got all his baseball gear. And I'm going to let it go because it is not a big enough problem for me to have to hold a line, to hold him to a line. It's very hard to hold anybody to a line, let alone somebody who really doesn't want to work with you anymore. I mean, think about your relationship when you were happy. Any relationship, if you've moved on or you're dating somebody new, I want you to think about you're in this relationship, you're in a point in a relationship, even a platonic friendship, a family member. Do you do things because you're happy to make them happy? Right? You do things because like, oh, I love seeing that you're happy, or I love helping out, or I love that I know that I can give back to you. Well, when you are not getting along anymore, that reason that you do things for each other goes away. And so now it has to become a choice of wanting to work together, not getting to like coerce them into what they're doing. So if you are sitting in a place where you really feel like your ex is a narcissist, he's acting selfishly, he's choosing things that only benefit him, they probably are having a negative impact on your children and your children wish something was different. But overall, the mental, physical, emotional well-being of your children are okay. They're hurt, they're sad if their dad is not picking them up or taking their time. But overall, right, in general, they're good. If he's doing things just to be difficult, just to catch you off guard, to make your life miserable, to trigger you, I want you, next time that old pattern shows up, do not respond in the same way. Give it some space. See if when you take your power back, when you choose to stop being triggered by whatever they are doing, you take your power back, it will shift the dynamic. Now, If they're really a narcissist, nothing you do, nothing you say or do, or how you show up differently is going to change how they show up. But if it's just an asshole, it 100% is going to start to shift. As I mentioned, it did not shift overnight. No, I'm pretty fiery. Back then I was a lot more fiery. I've calmed down. I've healed my emotions that drove me to be so fiery. But I learned to create space to not respond right away. I would write the text message response in a note app, and then I would wait until the next day and see if that's still really what I wanted to say. So I learned to change my behavior, which started to subtly shift the dynamic. It shifts on easy things first, like my kids started getting dropped off on time instead of always being late. Did it mean that he was willing to swap days or help out right away? No. But now, where are we? Now we're in a point. Our son is older, so he can stay home alone, a few extra hours than when he was younger. But now, yeah, for sure, he's willing to change days. Or, hey, we've got something on the weekend. Can our son stay here instead of going by you? He's flexible. Start with the low risk things, right? Can you start to get maybe just him responding to text messages when you ask a clarifying question, or making sure that the kids are picked up and dropped off on time? Those are huge wins, even though they are such small things. But those things, especially things that happen often, like pick up and drop off times, when those get consistent, what happens? It starts to rebuild trust. It starts to build a pattern. Now, you can start to move into working together or working parallel on other things. Maybe it's being able to show up to parent-teacher conferences together. Maybe it's being able to communicate about band dates, like a band concert. Little until you get to big, until you get to, hey, can we flex the schedule for this month? Or, hey, can you help cover, I'm going on a work trip. Can you cover the kids' extra days? It's going to take small steps to get to big steps. And the first thing that has to happen is you have to give them space. So next time your ex is acting all crazy, I literally want you to visualize them like they are a furry critter, a raccoon or a possum or a whatever, a bear, I don't care, pinned in the corner. And see them as being run by their emotions, being run by just trying to claw their way out to get some space, and give them the space. Continue to repeat that pattern and see if he can magically transform into just a little asshole instead of a narcissist. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.